I just know it's a mental illness, really.
It's some sort of illness. I honestly don't really know much about it.
My name is Matt Willett. I'm 19 years old and I go to Humber College for Media. I was diagnosed with Tourette Syndrome in 2008 by Dr. Goose in Belleville.
My name is Fuad Suleiman. I'm 20 years old and I'm a student at Guelph Humber University. I know that Tourette's is a mental illness in which that there are tics in which they will say or twitch in a way that they can't control. You know, people like swearing or yelling out swearing, and it's just like people are like, it's funny because he can't control and he's swearing. So I think it's maybe just that the perception that it is kind of just a funny illness, in which definitely probably is not funny.
I would probably define Tourette Syndrome as a neurological disorder. It has a psychological component and a physical component. As far back as I can remember, I've been having all sorts of different twitches. Some of them are facial. You know, I'll be typing on the computer and momentarily I might type really fast and then kind of scramble some random thing on the screen. I also have some twitches with my feet, a whole bunch of really like various different movements.
Christina Ovjak. I'm 20 years old, student at Guelph Humber. I've never made fun of anyone who had it. I've never like really experienced it or like seen anyone who does have it and they've been like a victim or like been like bullied.
I do have a classmate with it, and I've seen it, and you know, at times it was some people who didn't know that this person had it, and the person kind of made a twitch. The people were like, "What happened?" Like they made a I saw someone laugh once, and I thought it was really mean of them to laugh, because then you kind of realize that, okay, so it's not right to laugh at because that's a mental illness.
The most common stereotype that I've heard about anyone who's been diagnosed with Tourette syndrome is probably that the only, if not the most prominent symptom, it includes swearing and dropping the F-bomb especially. And there's a whole spectrum of ways of representations of what Tourette syndrome, a neurological disorder, is. It goes far beyond swearing. And there's a whole psychological component behind that, and I think that should be identified versus just looking at someone and saying, oh, you know, they swear a lot, they must have Tourette's. I think that people with Tourette's might be the subject of bullying or something like that because people don't always understand, and you know, that makes sense to me. Just because someone has Tourette's doesn't mean they don't have the same potential that anyone else does, and bullying or making fun of someone in its own right isn't something that should be done. There's different ways to bully someone. There's with the oral components, there's physical components, you know. Like I said, I've never really been bullied for having Tourette's, but I can see how making comments, you know, nicknames, even just being over aggressive, you know, if you're not really familiar with Tourette syndrome, those are ways of bullying. But you know, there's a whole thing where you might push someone, or in elementary school, on the schoolyard, who knows what can happen.
I don't think so. That sounds like something maybe like that would be in like some kind of cartoon or some kind of like offensive movie or something, but I don't think that anyone would want that, because it's probably hard to be someone with Tourette's, so why would you want to choose to put that kind of stigma on yourself, I don't see that. And I don't think that exists.
Yeah, there's billions of people on the planet. Someone is bound to have used their learning disability as an excuse, no matter what it is.
It just depends, because a lot of times you can't spot mental illness too. I mean, there's some mental illnesses you can spot and some you just can't. So that's a tough question. I mean, for the kids that can be spotted or the ones that look for help, I think teachers could, be there, more available, less of an educator level, more of a human level, to be there and say, hey, I'm your educator, but I can also be, a resource to you and also a friend to you in a sense.
They can't focus or something, doing things that will be geared towards them, and making sure that if they do need extra help, they will be able to get it.
I think an ideal adjustment to the education system when it comes to accommodating students that have Tourette's or any other neurological disorder is to give them the space and the time that they need. So if you permit those students to get that extra time within reasonable bounds, they can learn the information, they can prove that they've learned that information, and the stress won't make it even more difficult to finish whatever is at hand. To raise more awareness about Tourette syndrome, we could have workshops, I think, incorporating what a disability is, what the different kinds of disabilities are, and how they work, how they affect students and the students around them, and beyond the classroom should really be incorporated into the curriculum. I think that's a vital step that needs to be taken.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe more commercials about it, or talking about it in specific classes of what it is and what those people go through, just the effects of it.
I think probably with some kind of PSAs or information, just because I think it's one of those diseases that are still looked at, people aren't educated about it. They think it's still that weird, funny kind of thing. So I think that getting the word out that it is a part of a mental illness and it is a sensory disorder would definitely make waves, I think.
I think I would encourage anyone who's been bullied for any reason by letting them know that they can use their experiences in a positive way, and most of that connects to education. So bullying, I feel, is triggered largely by lack of understanding. There's an emotional component, there's an intellectual component, and I think if at least the intellectual component is addressed, then as a whole an improvement can be made. But kids need to learn to back off a little bit, and that's a whole subject on its own right. One of the things that I like to do to get my mind off of Tourette's when there's a high volume is beatboxing. So fast. Yeah, I like that.